Yes,
Please
sir.
record it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Start.
We are very happy to welcome you all for the KQHDA webinar, and I add to that the free webinar. And I welcome our patron, a very senior personality in homeopathy, Dr. B.D. Patel sir, as well as our chairman, Dr. Swami, as well as office bearers of KQHDA, and the special invitees of today, Dr. R. Prakash Shanai, as well as Dr. G. Nagendra Babu, and all the participants. Wholeheartedly, I am very happy to welcome you all. See, there are small tips here that what the last few webinars we had, and I think all over India we have created the awareness that through the webinar we could able to share and we could able to participate and we can do the better works of jointly working together. With that, the first we have started with that, and this is the some of the samples.
ಮೂಸಿಸ್ತಾರೆ.
So we have started with the first webinar on 3rd May. It was the first one where it has created a sensation all over India through the webinar where homeopaths can join together and we can able to share. They can do the wonders in their practice as well as sharing their knowledges. And these are the few webinars what we had from the 3rd May up till now. And many stalwarts from India as well as the abroad, they were with us. That was our pleasure to have such great personalities, as well as all the participants have accepted the webinar as well as their thought process very well, and they feel that still we have to continue with such webinars, and I hope the KQHD has given a very good platform for such activities. And you tell which part of the country all they were here, as well as from the abroad also. From the youngest doctors to the very senior most doctor, on the 80, 82, 85 years old doctors, they were all with us for the as a participant or as well as resource persons. Today we have with us two eminent doctors. I will introduce them. I request all the participants, if they have not become a life members, please join us as a life member, get an opportunity to share clinical experiences, presenting cases, as well as sharing your knowledge with us. And I would like to express my happiness. Today, we have two eminent teachers are with us. Yesterday, we have celebrated Teachers' Day. I hope everyone you remember, you have remembered your teacher. And as a teacher, as a student, I remember two things. This is the worst batch I ever seen such batch in my teaching life. And I have ever seen or never seen such students. And you should improve yourself. These are all the things where as a student I have heard. See, throughout my life, I have not heard this type of students or this type of batch. By the same time, as a teacher, I have told to my students also the same dialogue. I hope all the teachers you agree with me and the students also, see, I could able to make out from their face it is true. But one thing I will tell you, to respect to all my teachers as well as the teachers in the world, this is all with a good intention. To see that our students should become a #1 practitioner or a teacher in the society. That was the intention behind their words. That is the great thing. With all respect to all the teachers and very senior faculties and who are all still teaching or retired or who are going to teach, for all, I wish you all happy Teachers' Day. Today with us, the two eminent and senior teachers are with us. And both the teachers are actually, they are awarded by this as a best teacher from their university, their college and all. That is a very great pleasure. Immediately after the Teachers' Day, they are with us. And first, I would like to introduce Dr. R. Prakash. See, a very humble, sincere teacher who is with us today. I feel we are lucky. Why? I will tell you. See, his Sunday practice starts at 6 a.m. For your information, I will tell you, I won't wake up at all, 6 a.m. See, his practice starts. Then you can imagine. Just I was asking him, sir, have you had a food? He said, just light, I took it. And he requested me, sir, first I will finish and I have to go back. I don't know, 24/7, he is working. That's a great thing. Give him a big hand. He is with us today. Dr. R. Prakash Shanai is Associate Professor, Dr. Padiyar, Memorial Homeopathic Medical College, Chottanikara, Kochi, Kerala. I have seen they sincerely teach and they train the students, they send them out. They don't make much publicity, blah, 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 like that. Because as an examiner, as well as inspector, I have visited that institute. I remember how they work. And he is a first rank holder in his degree as well as in his all the studies. He was a in the even MG University, he got a first rank. He's ex-member of the Board of Studies, MG University, Mahatma Gandhi University, the Kerala, and first rank holder in PSC, Medical Officer, Kerala State. I think if Dr. Prakash Shanai is there, I think nobody should compete. That was the strategy he has created. And he has a so lovely and affectionate teacher from their students. And member of the Kerala Konkani Sahitya Academy. See, this is another face of Dr. Prakash, and Inspector for CCH and all Secretary of the Center for Rheumatism and Arthritis. He received the Best Teacher Award several times, specialized in treating chronic diseases. He is having professional experience of more than 28-30 years, and he is with us. Sir, please share your experiences with us, and I will introduce Dr. Nagendra later on. I welcome you all once again for KQHDA free webinar. Please join us, and if you have any queries, please post it in the chat box. And now I request our patron, very senior doctor, Dr. B.D. Patel sir, to inaugurate the session by making a Shankanada, where the Shankanada will create a positive vibration. That is, we have started for last 3-4 webinars that we felt very good, as well as it creates a positive aura in and around us. Please, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. See, sir, with all your blessings and this Shankanada, we hope all you get a positive vibrations in this depressive COVID era. I feel we will come out of that, and we could able to achieve better things. Yeah, Prakash sir, please start.
Sir. A warm good evening to all of you. I take this chance to express my gratitude. Thanks to Dr. Patel sir, Dr. Swami sir, Dr. Hegde sir, and Dr. Shubha, who is my student, Dr. Shubha. Today, within this short time, I like to share our experience in managing the chronic diseases. It is the backstone of homeopathy. As all of us know, the relevance of homeopathy nowadays, especially in metro cities, the majority of the public, more than 50%, accepts homeopathy as a mainstream of medicine. So we should be well acquainted with some application of our knowledge to fulfill the dreams of our patients. Homeopathy, as all of us know, a very excellent, a miraculous system which was founded by Dr. Hahnemann, and we should know some back concepts when we are coming to the field of homeopathy, that the concept of Hahnemann himself had published 6 times the Organon of Medicine, and in early phases, this concept regarding the totality of symptoms. See, in 1810, when the first edition was published, this concept was the disease symptoms. Disease symptoms constitute the totality. And later on, he converted that idea as subjective and objective symptoms constitute totality. And from the 4th edition onwards, that is from 1828, he came to the theory of chronic diseases. So whenever we get a patient, we should know which type of case we are going to deal, whether it is an acute one or a chronic one. As all of us know, the concept, the method of approach, the selection of medicine, the repetition, the guidelines, etc., all are entirely different in these two types of cases. So practically, today we are going to discuss about the practical or application of our knowledge in organon to homeopathy, applied organon, along with some case discussions also, if time permits. So here, when a patient comes to us, we should first categorize that patient whether he is suffering from an acute disease or a chronic disease, which is a must. The intensity is the deciding factor to discriminate between these two conditions. That is the intensity. When patient comes with intensified form, whatever may be the condition, we have to manage it as an acute disease. In acute disease, the selection of medicine depends upon two factors. Number one is exciting cause, and number two, most troublesome symptoms. Suppose a patient comes with gastritis, a child brought you with gastritis, diarrhea and vomiting since last day or since 2 days. When you are going to...
Dr. Prakash.
Sir?
Hello. Please,
Yes,
little increase your volume. Volume, please, little increase.
Volume. Oh.
Yeah.
That's okay, sir?
Ah.
Yeah. So when a patient comes, we should know whether it is an acute or chronic, and the intensity is the factor. Here, the child which brought you with the gastritis, having diarrhea, vomiting, and dehydration, when you are inquiring, had a history of intake of some meat, some bad meat or like that. Definitely we know the medicine is exciting cause plus the most troublesome symptom constitute a totality in acute disease, and the selection of potency, repetition, etc. depends upon the demand of the case. We all know the principles of homeopathy. Hahnemann's concept regarding the principles of homeopathy are majorly stick on to or adhere to the management of chronic diseases. The definition of health itself states that a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely an absence of any disease or infirmity. So when a patient comes to us with a chronic disease, we know all other systems can only manage that condition. They can only manage, but we can cure. Cure means permanent eradication of disease in its whole aspect. So here, the difference between homeopathy and allopathy lies, or the other system of medicines lies. We are trying to cure the case, and while the other systems are merely managing. Suppose a patient with diabetes, or suppose a patient with asthma, thyroid complaints, cardiac conditions, or epilepsy, etc., whatever it may be, if they ask to the allopathic physician, how much time I have to take this, I have to continue. So this management is not the aim of homeopathy. Homeopathy approaches the patient with the aim of a complete cure. So in order to attain that goal, we must have some basic ideas regarding Hahnemann's concept, the method of selection of medicine, the method of case taking, potency, dosage, repetition, guidelines, follow-up, etc., has to be. We should have a concrete idea about these things. They are very simple and very practical. Nowadays, there are so many class of homeopaths who approaches the patients with different attitudes. But the most simplest method, the most effective method, in my practice, I had seen that is Hahnemannian principle. Here, Hahnemann has given all the freedom, liberty for each and every homeopath to practice as per his wish. If we are going to the different editions, we can see this, that we can discuss later. So here, when a patient comes, first our aim is to categorize that patient whether he is acute or chronic. And if acute, likewise. And if it is a chronic case, we should know the chronic diseases are all the chronic disease which comes in front of us, categorized into three classes. Number one, true natural. Number two, drug diseases. And number three, pseudo-chronic diseases. So we must know which type of disease from our patient suffers. Whether it is a true natural one, or a drug disease, or a pseudo-chronic disease. Suppose three patients came and says they're having diabetes, their blood glucose is more than 320, 300. And if you go through the first case, there may be family history, and the patient says, doctor, I am taking such and such restrictions. I'm avoiding the sweets. I'm going for a regular exercise. My lifestyle is so controlled. Even after that, I have this problem. And the second case, the patient says, there is no family history in my life. In my family, there is no history of diabetes in my family. There is no history of any intake of these dietary habit, errors in dietary habits. I'm keeping my regular exercise, etc. But my sugar level is more than 300. And the third case also, he will also complain likewise. And if you go through each one, you can see, even after taking so much restrictions, if the patient's level is high, that is because of true natural chronic disease. These true natural chronic diseases are the sphere of homeopathy. In drug diseases, we can only manage. And pseudo-chronic disease, the third variety, that is, the cause is entirely due to the error in the patient's habits, their lifestyle, their mode of living, etc. So we should know which type of case. Then our operation, the modus operandi regarding that patient can be planned very well. If we don't know whether it's a drug disease or pseudo-chronic or a true natural, we will get confused. In some cases, we will get results. In some cases, we will be utter fraud. Then we will blame homeopathy. It's not the matter. We have a concrete idea about which type of disease we are going to manage. We have our weapons. Our weapons are simply our medicines. And I think if we have a sharp idea about our constitutional medicines, they will come around about 40 to 50. If we have a clear idea about their symptomatology, we can simply manage cases. We have got several types of medicine, polycrust medicines, short-acting medicines, acute medicines, organ remedies, tissue remedies, bachelor. Each one should be taken and each one should be applied according to the demand of the case. So first, this true natural chronic disease, we should know all the diseases are passing through two stages. Number one, a stage of functional disturbance, and it will be followed by a stage of pathological damage or structural changes. And man has got a clear idea about this pathology. So a stage of functional disturbance followed by a stage of structural changes. That structural changes can be of two types. Either it may be a proliferation or it may be a destruction. So these three bases, a functional disturbance, a proliferation, or a destruction. Proliferation means any sort of growth, any type of hyper, all the hypers, and destruction, third stage. So he named, as per the terms in his days, as Sora, psychosis, and syphilis. The collectively known as miasms. So we know regarding the concept of health, our body is governed by our concept. And main concept is that we have a central dynamic energy inside our body, which Hahnemann termed as vital force, which when flows smoothly, we named it as health. And when it is being obstructed somewhere, it will reflect outside as signs and symptoms, which we termed as diseases. So here, in chronic diseases, in true natural chronic diseases, we must know in which stage patient comes to us. Whether it is a stage of only a functional disturbance or whether there is any structural changes. These structural changes are of two types, that is reversible and irreversible. So we can broadly classify this natural disease into disease with only functional symptoms, disease with pathology which are reversible, and disease with irreversible pathology. Whenever we are stepping into our practice, we must know our limitations. We must know our scope. Without knowing the scope, we can't do with full confidence in our cases. Suppose a case with the irreversible pathology, if we are going with the principles of homeopathy, if the pathology is irreversible, we can't expect in this concept of cure. There we can also manage. So our decisions, our guidelines, or our preparation for treating the chronic patients depends upon the nature of their disease. Hahnemann's views or Hahnemannian principles, law of similia, simplex, minimum dose, etc. All the principles are majorly stick on to true natural reversible cases. In other sort of cases, at the Hahnemannian time, these types of cases were more. Nowadays, we know the society, our environment is so much polluted. Our people are more susceptible, morbid susceptibility is increased. So, in each and every type of disease, we can't follow the same principles. Even then, we have got strong principles, strong guidelines from our masters how to operate different types of chronic diseases. So first of all most important thing is case taking itself. We all of know a well taken case means half cured. The purpose of case taking itself indicates to know the essence of the case, to know the essence, to identify the miasmatic background, to know the diagnosis, etc., etc. Whatever it may be, whenever we are going to start a case, the most important thing is that the principle of similia is not only formulated for the selection of a medicine. It's the universal law. It should be followed in each and every aspect of homeopathy. In regarding case taking, in selection of medicine, in selection of dose and potency, etc. Even in advising the restrictions regarding the patient, we have to follow this principle, the principle of similia. The patient must feel he is narrating his story to a very intimate friend. Then only he will open. We know the importance of mental symptoms in homeopathy. No? We have got a good number of medicines. Our medicines are abundant, enriched with mental symptoms. These mental symptoms are not directly get from the patient, but through a thorough observation, its tone, his approach, etc. Everything gives us a picture regarding his mental aspect. So it should be drawn like a portrait. That's why homeopathy's case taking is said to be an art as well as a science. Homeopathy is a system of art as well as a science. We have to do artistically the things. So when we begin a case taking, the patient must feel he's narrating his story to a very intimate friend. How we can make intimacy? It's not because simply by saying, tell me, etc., etc. Because the treatment culture of our patient are the non-homeopathic systems, allopathic school. Their casting is entirely different from ours. They are not even looking to the patient. They will not ask anything. They will immediately hearing the presenting complaint, PC. They will give a lab examination chart, which will be enriched with so many tests. And the patient will go to the laboratory. They will examine and they will submit to the physician. He will go through that chart and they will prescribe. So they gives more importance to these investigations. That never means we are not giving any importance to these investigations. For us, homeopathy is basically a human science. It's not a laboratory science. That's why nowadays, in these corona days, we know our immune booster, arsenicum album, has been very efficient through in so many areas of our country. Yesterday, in our state of Kerala, our Calicut Government Homeopathy Medical College has two huge new blocks. Our health minister inaugurated the function yesterday evening, and she clearly explains the homeopathy can arrest so much spread in the state of Kerala by taking this immunobooster. So now we are getting more chance in the public. Homeopathy is getting more and more popular among the publics. This is the time to come for a come out from our wings. As homeopaths, we should well acquainted with the situation, and we have to act accordingly. Then our system will get more and more popular, and we can be approach the patient or the public confidently. So the case taking has got basically two parts: examination of the patient and conclusion. So when we get a picture regarding the case, we must know.
Sir,
Sir, unmute, sir.
Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So the patient's picture will be a mixture of these two factors. Number one, the PC, and number two, the preceding events. So as homeopathy is concerned, the presenting complaints are always the end product of a process behind it, a long process. Our idea, our aim is to know that process, from where these things happened, from where the origin of disease actually. Now he presented with suppose he is suffering from a backache for since last 8 months or 1 year or 2 years, whatever it may be. That's only an end product. Before that, he had gone through several proceedings before these things. So a proper case taking means give us the clear idea about the totality of symptoms. So as per homeopath, we have two sets of symptoms. Number one, the primary symptoms, and number two, the secondary symptoms. Secondary symptoms are always known as presenting complaint. We are not focusing upon this presenting complaint to prescribe the medicines. We are focusing on the primary symptoms, which precedes these presenting complaint, PC. So a proper case taking, it will give us a clear view regarding the essence of that case. What, where, how these things happen. I'm not going into the depth of the case taking, as all of us know. So there are so many methods to take a case properly. Whatever it may be, a case taking means a life biography of the patient himself. So it should include the family history, the past history, the personal history, his attitudes, his mental picture. All the things correlates us and gives the story of that patient. Why, where, and how these things happens. It will give us the main object of chronic disease case taking is to find out the most predominant miasm. What is miasm? As per Hahnemann's terms, they are stigma or stain. And we should not go into the depth. We should simply know it's a toxin. It's a toxin present inside our body from very birth onwards. And there are 3 layers: psora, psychosis, and syphilis. All of us know all these things. But the importance is that, as per our first aphorism itself, the physician's high and only mission is to restore the sick to health, to cure, as it is termed. To health, that comma is very, very relevant. The first mission of the first aim of the physician is to bring the patient into a healthy state. Health has got different spectrum. All of us know positive health, better health, freedom from sickness, unrecognized sickness, mild sickness, severe sickness, death. These 7 levels constitute the spectrum of health. So from the lower level to bring him to the upper, and when he is apparently healthy, then only, that is coma to cure. Cure means permanent right. So in order to attain that cure, we have to prescribe a constitutional medicine. Different names: miasmatic medicine, constitutional medicine, individual medicine, similimum, whatever it may be. So that medicine should be tried only after the patient is getting a apparently healthy state. Up to that period, we had to give acute medicines. Then we had to bring the patient to a apparently good healthy state. Then only we have gone for a chronic medicine, generally. If the condition is not so severe, or the patient's health is not so worse, we can directly go for a constitutional medicine. But before that, if the condition is worse, we had to give, suppose, a child brought us with a recurrent attack of tonsillitis, with a beautiful picture of belladonna. Belladonna, all of us know, the great children remedy. Without belladonna, we couldn't practice. The 4 medicines in homeopathy, which should be kept in our table always, in our consulting table: belladonna, aconite, that coffea, ferrum phos, and a bottle of spirit, or a spirit. So these 5 things we have always in our table. So this belladonna, when we are prescribing belladonna, the child may get relief. But after a few times, he may again recur. So when we are going through the case, you will come to know that case may be a calcareous. So after prescribing belladonna, we have to go for calcareous. That is restoration to sick, to health, comma, to cure. To health will be completed with the belladonna, and to cure will be completed with the calcareous. That's a general rule. Homeopathy, the applied homeopathy says there is no definite rule, the strict rules. All of us know homeopathy is a system of experience. As earlier, Hegde sir told, I started my practice since 28 years back, when I was just completing my 21st year. I was initially a diploma holder. So during the house residency itself, I started my clinic. It was a very small clinic. And the very second or third day, I got a case, a very interesting case. It's a lady named Rajamma who brought to me with the symptoms that she will develop suddenly in huge size. She will go on, develop, and she will last for such a size for around about 2 weeks. Then after 2 weeks, she will get reduced for 6 to 8 hours. She will become normal. Again, after 8 hours, she will develop growing size. So this was very wonderful case of that our locality, and she was treated with having. There is a at that age, that time she had got 44 like that, and she had these complaints for last her 2 to 3 years. She was brought to several hospitals, including medical colleges, and there is no specific diagnosis. All the other systems fails, and this was surely a very good earning for their family. The people believes that she is a representative of God. Some spirituality came over her house, and she will sit in her veranda, and the people will, hundreds of people will gather, and they will put the dakshina and kanika, and that was a very good earning for them. And her granddaughter, child aged I think 6 or 7 years, was brought me in the very first day during my practicing life. My clinic was started by on I think October 6, 1992. It was inaugurated by our famous guru, Dr. S.K. Padia, a big stalwart in homeopathy all over India. Padia sir blessed me by giving stealth. And he only told me one thing: you should never go behind money. You should go with your patient. Money will come behind you. It was the great lesson given by Dr. Padia sir. He was our principal and was no more. So, pranams to Padia sir. And following that advice till this day of my practice, that Rajamma, the case, so her granddaughter was molluscum contagious. Molluscum contagious, and I prescribed Calcareca 30 for that child. 7 or 8 doses I have prescribed, daily one dose in the morning, and very third or fourth day itself, her molluscum has completely gone. That's the first case. And seeing this, her mother, that is the Rajamma's daughter, thought that she should also bring to homeopathy, her mother. And when they came in my clinic, I can't bring her inside my clinic because my door was a normal door and she can't get inside. I go outside and examine. You remember, I am just a neo homeopath at that time. I don't know properly how to operate the cases. By grace of God, I prescribed her lachesis, considering her age and some symptoms I got from her. Very few symptoms only I got. She was a widow. She had 2 children. One this girl, and she had a young. First, a boy was there, but he died due to an accident, an RT, road traffic accident, at his 26th year likewise. Following just 1 week after, her husband also died. So at the age of 32, she became widow. And these complaints, and one more thing happened, I think, her menses was stopped when very next month onwards. Her menses was also stopped. That's the only relevant history I got at that time. And she developed these features 6 to 7 years after this. So it's a case, and lachesis was prescribed, and miraculously, from there onwards, she will never get huge. That makes me very popular, and I have to go through cases. You know, the anxiety of a beginner, the enthusiasm, anxiety, the strain, etc. I had to go to my number of patients flies to 400, 424 is my record per day. I don't know, I can't remember, and I can't imagine such a hectic stage. So now I have to control chronic diseases and use prior appointments, and I had to go through around 75 to 100 cases per day. I have 2 junior doctors. They will take the case and I will merely prescribe. The activities will be managed by my juniors and my wife, Dr. Divya, when I goes to college likewise. This is the case of lachesis, I even remember. And further, when I came to know more about the drug pathogenesis, lachesis, the key symptom of lachesis is that sexual tension or suppression. We all of us know lachesis is a loquacious medicine, loquacity. The loquacity is the suppression of her sexual sphere. The complementary medicine to lachesis is lycopodium. No? So this lycopodium, the keynote symptom is impotence. So in our Materia Medica, we have an interesting state that the complementary relationship is the relation between wife and husband like concept is there. To study Materia Medica, there are so many methods. It's a very interesting method. Lachesis is a female partner, and lycopodium is her male partner. Her male partner is impotent. So she develops naturally sexual tension. And in order to overcome this suppression, she turns to this suppression comes outside as expression in the form of words, religiousness. So she become religious, become verbal diarrhea develops, etc. So whatever it may be, that case, the case of lachesis was the first chronic disease I've ever met in my life, which brings me great fame, everything a young homeopath wants to be. So here, when we are going with these chronic diseases, these miasms, we should know our patient is predominantly psoric, psychotic, or syphilitic, which is a must to get a cure. So reversible pathology or only with the functional disturbance, these are the two categories of cases where we can expect that brilliant cures in homeopathy. All other cases like irreversible pathologies, drug diseases, etc., they need to be managed with some other views. So these are the thoughts which we are going to share today. A very few concrete thoughts, only few times is left for us. So here, in true natural chronic diseases, we should know regarding the miasm. The knowledge of miasm helps us to get the pathology. Even without a deep knowledge in pathology, if we have a clear idea about the symptomatology of the miasm, how we can diagnose a miasm merely by two terms. One, by its latent character, and number two, by its manifestations. The latent character of psoriatic miasm is that functional disturbance. All of us know. Patient says, doctor, I am having no appetite. Since last 3 months, I have no appetite. I went for so many other classes or other doctors, and they examined me and saying nothing. You have nothing to do. You have nothing to worry. Your own investigations are normal. These are only your thoughts. They will prescribe some vitamins or enzymes or some other supportive medicines. But his appetite got not improved. And finally, after 1 year or 2 years, when we investigate, when we come, we can see there is an ulcer, or there is a growth. So a functional disturbance precedes and a structural changes follows. This is the normal rule. So if we get in a functional phase itself, it's very easier to manage. But unfortunately, majority of our patients came to us with pathological changes. In the early phase, they will approach some otherwise, or they will try to manage itself by their own medications. That is why one of the reasons to hear that homeopathy is most amicable to children's. Aged patients can't approach homeopathy because it is slow acting. Likewise, some myths are there in our society. In children's case, the parents are very eager and they will brought immediately whatever the symptoms may develop. So majority of the children remedy, if you looks, they are psoriatic in nature, like sulfur, cinna, chamomilla, belladonna, calcareum, etc., silicea, etc. are psoriac. And if it comes to a middle-aged group, just remember, just think of our common prescriptions. To commonly fell, like lycopodium, natramur, sepia, tuja. Now, such psychotic medicines are there. And we are looking into old age. We will wonder, we are prescribing syphilitic medicines in majority of cases, knowingly or unknowingly. So this unknowing part should be cleared. Then we will get a concrete confidence in our system. In old age, we will prescribe Oramet, Paretaka, nitric acid, fluoric acid, metallic groups. So these medicines, majority of the medicines fell under syphilitic miasm. So a clear idea about the miasms and a clear idea about the nature of medicines, anti-miasmatic medicines, will give us a very good confidence in us, and this we can safely manage our chronic cases. So all of us know the medicines for bad effects of vaccination. If we go through it, that antimonium tart, tuja, silicea, Crotalus horridus, and Miserium. We have got these 5 medicines. Suppose a child comes with a, what will be the case? Be a case of bronchial asthma, and there is no relevant history. We are depending upon this rubric, that is bad effects of vaccination. If that case falls into a psychotic group, in these 5 medicines, the major psychotic medicines are Antitart and Thuja. And the psoriatic medicine, the predominant psoriatic medicine is Cilicia. And the syphilitic medicines are Miserium and Crotalus horridus. So here, the very birth onwards, we can know the nature of the myasm of that particular child. If a child born with low weight, suppose a male baby born with 2 kg, predominantly 2 to 2.5, we are expecting kg or 3.5 kg for a male baby, and if it is less than, that may be predominantly a psoriatic one. If the child is only 1.5, less than 2 kg, predominantly it may be a syphilitic one. If the child is huge in size, it may be a psychotic one. If the child born with Icterus neonatorum, we all know, no? The physiological jaundice. So that child falls into a psoriatic group. If it is born with Ophthalmia neonatorum, it is a syphilitic manifestation. Predominantly that child is syphilitic. And if it is the Asphyxia neonatorum, there is a history of Asphyxia neonatorum, it will be naturally a psychotic one. So there is a history, there is a bronchial asthma, and there is a history of vaccination. So a bad history of vaccination with the bronchial asthma, with the history of this Asphyxia neonatorum. All of us know the medicine is antimonium tart. Okay, so that's the method which you are selecting a medicine in a pediatric case. Majority of the pediatric medicines, suppose the in case of bronchial asthma, we will wonder, we see the list. Maybe most probably we are prescribing Cilicia or Pulsatilla. Cilicia is the chronic of Pulsatilla, and it's Calimure, Calisurf, etc. These are chemical and weight analogs, the relationships. So these we do in our daily practice. Unknowingly, majority of us don't know the importance of myasm. So this knowledge in myasm, suppose a patient comes, 2 patients comes to you and says, Doctor, I have severe this toothache, and did I want to extract that? What will be our answer? The people will ask so many questions to us. How much time this will take, and how much I have to wait for a positive result, whether this is curable or incurable. All these answers will upon the knowledge of myasm. That's the importance of myasm. A miasmatic medicine can remove the past, can clear the present, and can prevent the future too. So that's a complete vanishing of the disease. Our life is a constant battle between the vital force and the miasms. Both these forces are dynamic in nature. They are hidden in parallel ways. When vital force gets upper hand, that condition is known as health. And when the miasms get upper hand, that condition is known as disease. So if these patients ask, Doctor, whether I want to extract my teeth, what will be our answer? The answer depends upon the nature of that pain. We will ask, at which time you can tolerate this pain? The patient says, Doctor, I can't tolerate in the daytime. I am severely agonized. I can't even go for a job. I can't do my daily activities. I want to extract it. Then only I will get relief, I think. No. And the other patient says, Doctor, I can tolerate it in the daytime comparatively, but at night, I can't sleep. My sleep is being disturbed for several days or weeks. Did I want to extract this? The answer is that the first patient doesn't want to extract the teeth because he is having a daytime aggravation. It's a predominant manifestation of psora. The second patient, the second category, he must extract because it's a syphilitic presentation. In syphilis, there is destruction is massive. You can't save it in majority of cases. So it is better to extract. But the first case, daytime aggravation, which is the manifestation of SORA, there is only a functional disturbance and there is no such pathology. So those patients can be beautifully managed with the homeopathic medicines, apart from this extraction. So this is the way you have to approach when we are taking when we are managing a chronic diseases. So here, after completing case, we have to go for the essence. After completing the picture of the patient, we will get a clear idea about the patient's pathology, his miasmatic background, his history, his thermal reaction, his side affinity, his mental picture, etc. All are being conjointly together, which we termed as totality. And from this totality, we have to select the predominant miasm. Suppose the case is of a psychotic one, and the patient is having a predominantly a left-sided affection, and his thermal reaction, which is suppose it's a hot patient in thermal reaction, we can give a category as left psychotic hot medicine or a left psychotic hot patient. So in this psychotic group, left-sided medicines, which are predominantly hot. All of you know there are so many medicines. For example, we can consider two medicines. Natrum muriaticum. It's predominantly a left-sided medicine. It's predominantly a psychotic medicine, and it's a hot medicine too. The other one is Lachesis nuta. It's also a left-sided hot psychotic one. How we can differentiate? So it is here, no? Natrum is an introverted nature, and Lachesis is very extroverted, very expressive. Natrum is very inside, which he will keep his symptomatology inside. So what is the key symptom of natrum mur? Natrum mur is all the picture of natrum mur is flourished from that emotional pain. The symptomatology of natrum mur is a representation of the or an outbreak of his emotional suppression. When we are going through boric materia medica, the first symptom itself in mind, psychic cause of illness. What is the psychic cause? We know the gradations of symptoms, no? According to Kent, generals, particulars, and common. In general symptoms, again Kent divided the symptoms into mental, physical. Mental generals and physical generals. In mental generals, here again subdivided. Symptoms pertaining to will, intellect, and memory. In will, the first grade symptoms are those pertaining to love and hate, desires, aversions, intolerance. So the symptoms which are pertaining to love, they are the most striking symptoms, they are the most innermost symptom of the patients. So here in natrum mur, she develops a sort of emotional pain from this unfortunate love. What's the peculiarity of natrum mur love? It's very interesting. Natrum mur fell in love with those peoples which she can never, or the society can never adjust. Her love comes from out of a sort of admiration. She can't express or she can't share her love even to her intimate friend. It's very secret type of love. She will never get it fulfilled. And this leads to an inward direction. She'll go inside. The best friend, the intimate friend of a natrum mur patient is her pillow. She will go inside the room, lock it, in the bed, and weeps, sobs, cries. She doesn't want consolation from. She knows she can't express this peculiar affair to anybody. So she becomes introverted. She doesn't want company. What happens? She will never go even for a simple food. We all know aversion to bread. What Hanuman means by the term aversion to bread of this natrum mur? In our Kerala, in our college, I'll always ask question to our students. They'll answer modern bread, sweet bread, wheat bread, or salt bread likewise. The term bread means earn his daily bread and butter, the European language. In our country, we are saying that the least simplest food for a layman. In Malayalam, we will say kanji. Shubha, but in Kannada, you are telling?
Ganji.
Kanji. So aversion to kanji, that's the term meaning of aversion to bread. In our medicines, they are proved in Europe and otherwise. So many symptoms in our Materia Medica are, we should view it on the view of their language. So this aversion to bread, aversion to kanji occurs to these natriuretic patients. What happens to them? They become lean, they become emaciated, they become anemic. As a thought, what happens to them? They become dehydrated. And what the vital force will do? Vital force will, suppose a patient with the dehydration is brought into a hospital, what they will do immediately? They will put a drip, saline drip, oral drips, IV drips, including saline and sugar. So that saline, salt. So the natriuretic patient's vital force craves salt, desires salt. We have some other medicines too for this desire salt. Natriuretic, phosphorus, sepia, calcareous carb, and tuberculina. These are the 5 medicines having specific craving for salt. The pathophysiology behind the craving case is entirely different. In natriuretic, because of this wasting and emaciation due to absolute lack of intake of any sort of food, she does whole picture of his natriuretic personality. Her skin becomes dry, it becomes cracks, she can't suffer heat in any form, as if thousands of little hammers were knocking in the brain. All these are due to lack of blood supply at that particular time. So in case of sepia, this desire for salt, it also comes in other ways. See, sepia is a constitution, it's an acquired constitution. It's an acquired constitution from repeated pregnancy, sexual excess. From repeated pregnancies and sexual excess. What happens to, after result? These repeated pregnancies give a huge number of children in her home, no? And she becomes a laundry woman. She has to wash all these clothings and everything of her children and family. She's a miserly too. She will not brought any sort of washing machine or like that. She will do physical labor always. And Sepia got ammunition from physical exercise. She can't sit still. She wants to do any activity at any time, at all time. So she will expose it to the sun also. As a part of this laundry work, what happens to her? She named as washerwoman's remedy. No? We all heard about washerwoman's remedy. The pathophysiology is that. Just always do work. Who was her husband? The complementary of Sepia is Naxomiga. Okay? Naxomiga. What's the peculiarity of Naxomiga? Naxomiga, the key symptom is the conqueror. He's not satisfied with anything. He always wants more, again. That unsatisfied personality, unsatisfied with anything in his life. So this same unsatisfaction will show towards his wife also, named Sepia.
Sir, another 5 minutes.
Sir. This sort of key symptoms for our drugs are there. So after going to the case taking, we have to complete a essence of the case. We have to select the chronic medicines accordingly. It should cover the myasm. It should cover the generic totality, specific totality, and individual totality. These three phases should be considered to make a prescription. After that, we have to select the apt potency. Potency or dose means medicine impact. There is no time of doses. How many numbers you are given? I have given Naxomiga 37 doses, 8 doses, 10 doses. There is no such question in homeopathy. Homeopathy, dose means medicine impact. In which dose you are given? I have given Naxomiga in the 200th dose. That's the answer. The number of times, that depends upon the strength of the disease and the experience on the part of the physician. The law of minimum dose never advocates it should be single dose. Single dose is a symbolic dose to study the principles of homeopathy. It never means you should stick on to single dose. If it is possible, it is good. We have to prescribe minimum dose, the minimum quantity to rouse the vital force. To fulfill the gut, we need meals. The number of urulas, the number of quantity of meals depends from stomach to stomach. No, so that's why that's the same relation with the dose also. Dose never means
Sir,
numbers, but sir.
You have any experience with the different higher potencies like ACM, 10M?
Yes, sir. Actually, in homeopathy, there are two categories. One, materialistic, and number two, metaphysical. Materialistic are go for low potencies and metaphysicals are go for high potencies. In homeopathy, actually, there is no...
in your experience?
In my experience, sir, yeah. I'll explain. The low potencies I use generally in cases of pathologically advanced cases, organ remedies I used. Organ remedies for brain, heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, the most important 5 vital organs. I use Brahmi, Avena sativa, Tinospora, ginseng, alfalfa, etc. for brain complaints as organ remedies. They are prescribing in physiological doses, in tinctures.
The mother tinctures.
Mother tinctures, sir. Along with constitutional medicine. Because if the these vital organs when seriously damaged, in case of Parkinsonism, in case of Alzheimer's, some acute phases of epilepsy, some sort of loss of memory, dementia, Parkinsonism, etc., needs such medicines, supportive medicines for the brain. And in case of cardiac complaints, Crataegus, Cactus, and Strophanthus are the 3 king medicines, which we can safely depends upon whatever may be the cardiac complaint. Crataegus, Cactus, Strophanthus. Again, there are Loroceras, Digitalis, etc. Everything should be given in 5 or 6 drops per day, 2 or 3 times.
One more question. Where the latest, where the COVID cases have started from Kerala earlier, but do you have any experience with coming with the very severe cases of the second or third stage of COVID cases? Was there any opportunity to treat such cases?
So I have met only 2 cases. One, it was a telephonic conversation with the patient. The patient suffers from acute that's the initial days of COVID. She develops throat pain and headache and body pain, and she loses olfactory power also. Loss of taste was there, and her symptom most corresponds to Eupatoria at that time. She has got the severe chillness and vomiting was there. And her husband came and I gave him Eupatoria 30 every 2 hourly for 2 days. And she was somewhat totally get out of that condition. But unfortunately, what happened was she is working in the naval base, and her colleagues, when they find positive, she is also underwent by the government authorities, and she was isolated for 2 weeks time. And her husband and other family members had taken this arsenical, and they now it is almost 2 months over. They never diagnosed the symptoms of COVID. It's one case. In another case, a family, there are also 7 members in that family. She was a layman going work in the fish industry, and their outburst of COVID occurs. Around about 60 members were attacked with the COVID, and she, from very birth onwards, takes only homeopathy medicines. She came over here very secretly because in Kerala, we have no provisions to treat COVID patients directly. And she presented her symptoms.
Except Maharashtra and Gujarat, they have permitted. Thank you very much, sir. I am asking so many queries. The questions are there. There is no questions. I think we have to have one more or 2 more webinars with you with a 2 to 3 hours session. Thank you very much. Thank you sharing your time and valuable precious Sunday time with us on behalf of KQHDA, all office members as well as our patron and the chairman, all the office members. We thank you very much, sir. You could able to join us. Certainly, sometime physically, we will be invited in our association platform.
Surely, sir. Surely, sir.
We'll continue. This is the
So
beginning
this,
of our
yeah,
relationship.
yes, sir.
I
Yes, sir.
expect.
Yes, sir. I know, sir. This is a very short span. We can't express completely.
Yeah.
Needs several
In
times.
short time only we could able to introduce each other. I know because it's a very vast subject. And the one thing what I appreciate, though you are an organon teacher, and you know how best you could able to apply the Mitra Medica and correlate with repertory. See, rarely it happens, And I have seen many organon teachers, they talk only philosophy. Practically, they are very poor. This is my experience, I show. And you are exceptional of that.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, sharing.
Thanks.
Now,
So I take this chance to show my gratitude to Dr. B.D. Patel sir, Dr. Swami sir, Dr. Hegde sir, and all of you who patiently hear my these few words, and thanks a lot to share our experiences. We can meet in another time. Till then, thank you. Have a nice evening.
thank you very much, Dr. Prakash. I hope we will
Thank
be
you, sir.
in touch.